Hello everyone and welcome back to another World of Tanks console video. My name is Xenozach and today's video is all about what do I grind next. And this video is not particularly asking what I, Xenozach, am going to be grinding, but what we as a community should start grinding out experience on to prep ourselves for any future updates that World of Tanks console is going to be introducing later on this year. Now, previously in the February overview, we went over the server version that we're going to be upgrading to, which is the 9.19, which was an actual error on my part for the Chinese tank destroyers. As you know, the Chinese tank destroyers are being introduced to World of Tanks console. Now, that was a little bit more scarier on the facts that was just a line introduced onto PC fairly recently. While not as popular as the other lines, it is still a newer tank line to grind down. Now, here's the thing about that. Again, that was an error on my part. The server version is not 9.19, it's actually 9.20. So, with the help of Tanks GG, we're going to be pulling up the 9.20 server version of the game. So currently you can see that we jumped from 9.17.1, which was here, 2 extra server versions to 9.20 in order to introduce the tanks. And just to give you guys a little bit of that, 9.19.1 if you really want to consider it, but 9.20, it might be the 9.19.1, but 9.20 was really the introductions of these tanks. So getting started here, the Chinese tank destroyers from 1 through 10, the T26 GFT, the M3 GFT, the Su-76 GFT, the 60 GFT, the WZ-131F GFT, the T-34 2 GFT, so many FTs, the WZ-111 1 GFT, and the WZ-111 GFT, you know, that 111-1 and 111G. And then finally we have the Tier 10 WZ-113 GFT. So many FTs in that. The Chinese tank destroyers were originally created on the Chinese server and were exclusive to them until recently. I believe that was last year, and I want to say October and November, that they were released onto PC. Again, that was a very unusual move for them. They actually took something off of a different server version. If you guys don't know, the Chinese server isn't necessarily run by Wargaming, they just support their title. Which meaning that on the Chinese server you will see a lot of weird tanks that pop up on their server compared to any of the other nations. Most notably the Type 59G that we currently now have on console, or at least the variant in the King Dragon Type 59. Anyway, moving to the server versions, the reason I bring this up is because a lot of you guys are probably not expecting the tank destroyers, neither was I, for the Chinese tank destroyers to be introduced. Now, this isn't really the main focus of this video. Although they are being introduced in a week's time onto console, the main point of this is to let you guys know or get a head start on tanks that you might need to grind out, or at least get a decent picture of what you need in the future of World of Tanks, not focusing on the Chinese destroyers. Again, those are very close as far as being able to grind out experience for them. So moving on, we're going to be going into some of the changes that happened in the 9.20 server version. In this server version, we not only get the Chinese tank destroyers that were in the game, but we also move into the overall new tanks that were introduced. And the first tank that you guys are going to need to start grinding, and I suggest this right away, is starting from the AMX Tier 8, the AMX AC Emilia. This is the first tank in the list that actually changes, comparing that to PC or the current version we have on console. This tank is actually being changed to when fully upgraded, a 3-round auto-loading tank. It comes with the 120 AC SA46 that I believe a lot of you should be more familiar with, that is on the AMX 50 120 or the AMX 50B. Now this tank from the tier 8 introduces a new tier 10 French tank, which you guys can start grinding out. If you have the AMX Foch in this case, the tier 8, tier 9, and tier 10 were revamped. So the tier 8 is the AMX AC MLE 48. The tier 9 and the tier 10 are all auto-loading tanks. Now currently the AMX 50 Foch is 155 was the only tank. On PC they ended up moving this tank to a tier 10 premium auto-loading tank destroyer. However, on console, again, that we've noticed from before, or if I haven't stated this, the more obvious thing is that they do not remove tanks from the game. They prefer keeping it, and currently they have no intentions of bringing tier 9 or tier 10 rewards tanks to the game. So what this means is that the tier 10 AMX 50 Foch B is actually going to be introduced as a secondary tier 10 non-premium tank to the game, along with the AMX 50 Foch 155. That tank does need a buff, and I assume they might do that with this update, or in the update that includes this change. However, nothing can be said until Wargaming actually release information on that. The tier 8 has a 3-round auto-loading 120. The tier 9 has a 4-round auto-loading 120, the AMX 50 Foch, and this is where you really want to start your grind out. I would say, again, the tier 8 is probably going to be the more unique, or at least giving you the feel for it. It's going to be joining the ranks of some of the only tier or 3-round autoloaders in the game, such as the Cheery, the Skoda T50, or the Skoda T25. Being 3-round autoloaders is a unique thing in the game. The MX 50 Foch is becoming a 4-round autoloader, comparing that to the Foch 155. This will actually have a 4-round autoloader 120 with the same gun when fully upgraded. The 120, again, the AC SA46, so if you have the heavy tanks research, this gun should be a little bit more accessible. That doesn't include, because the way our packaging system works, it normally comes with different tracks, engine, stuff like that. But that's just to give you a sound. Now the MX 50 Foch will of course be branched off, going to either the MX Foch 50 155 or the brand new tier 10, the AMX 50 Foch B. With this unique tank was basically their replacement for the Waffenträger E100, as again I stated, it was replaced by the Grill 15. This tank comes with a 6-round 120mm autoloader gun. With the exact same gun, 6 rounds in the magazine, and the 400 alpha damage on that gun. Now normally I think I would have to say this is probably going to be the more competitive compared to the MX 50 Foch 155. However, that's not to say that they can't adjust the MX 50 or MX Foch 155 to at least balance out the MX 50 Foch B that they're going to introduce. This is just something to keep your guys a little bit more occupied with grinds if you're either up there with free experience or have nothing to grind. The AMX 50 Foch tier 9 French tank destroyer is where you get your start on building up free experience. If you already have the MX Foch 155, simply sell it. If you don't enjoy the tank, sell it back, grind out the MX 50 Foch, and start getting I would assume the research price is gonna be the research price should be around I would say around 200,000 experience for the tier 10. That's what I'm assuming. I could go out to the PC and just double check that, but again, just grind out around 200,000 experience on that within the time. Hopefully we have at least a month or two before the update would hit with the AMX 50 Foch B. Don't quote me on that, that's just a random guess I'm taking based on the way some of their updates have been in the past with similar types of releases. Again, the AMX 50 Foch is where you're going to get started with that. Hopefully you guys can jump into that. So the next grind after this after this tanks is going to be the 9.20.1, which included some revisions to the Tier 8, 9, and 10 British heavy line. Along with, I believe, the 4005 Stage 2 getting a different buff to it, but we're not focusing on what the buff has. That's just something you guys can get on your own. The Super Conqueror in this update. Now, the Super Conqueror is one of those tanks that isn't really being looked forward to. It's not really enjoyed as much by PC, as everybody was kind of expecting the Chieftain Mark 6. As you can see here, it's a premium tier 10 tank, but the Chieftain Mark 6 being their tier 10 replacement to the 215B. 215B ended up being removed and replaced by the Super Conqueror on PC. However, on console again, we still have the Chieftain Mark 6 along with the FV215B. What this means is that your current tier 9 Conqueror is going to have a third branch that you can start researching your tank on. Go back down to the tier 9 Conqueror and start grinding out another 200,000 experience for the Super Conqueror, the brand new tier 10 heavy tank that's going to be introduced in the game, which even the tier version, the tier 9 Conqueror version, I believe, gets an updated model to the tank. So if you don't quite enjoy playing the Conqueror as is currently, you can always wait for it to become the Conqueror, I guess the Super Conqueror pre-tier 9, because it really looks the same. That is the Conqueror right there, and that is the Super Conqueror. I believe it just gets better armor. The gun gets better rate of fire, all that stuff. Yeah, it does get better DPM on that. So again, the Super Conqueror will probably follow that. Going down, the final update that PC has as far as tanks being replaced that I can think of is actually one that hits a lot closer to us than we realize, which is again in the UK line. However, this time it revolves around the tank destroyers. I believe this is... Why didn't it go down? What happened here? That is... Oh. I messed up. 9.21. So the 9.21 server version of PC, that was a little bit of a confusion there. I was trying to go through the different ones. As you can see, they had smaller changes. 9.21 introduced the replacement to the FV217, or the replacement to the FV215B 183, more commonly known as the Death Star. On PC, they replaced this tank recently with the FV217 Badger. As you know, the British apparently really love naming their tanks after animals, because Death Star didn't sound cooler. So the Badger was their replacement for that tank. So if you currently own the tier 9 Tortoise, I would suggest to start grinding out, I would say another, again, 150, 160,000 experience. If you really want to push it, I only suggest 200,000 because it's a great baseline to start from. Tank destroyers tend to be a little bit higher than the heavies and mediums, so sometimes you want to grind them out. I know in the Russians' case, it was the highest one is 301,000, which was previously the 263, but again the 263 is being moved down in the newer versions of the 9.22 version, I believe. Yeah, it's being replaced. However, we don't need to worry about that currently, but these are the tanks that you guys definitely want to start focusing on in the current grind of the game. 9.21 definitely has some stuff. I know the Tier 8 Carnarvon gets a little bit different turret, the Conqueror as well as the Super Conqueror. Again, PC really wanted that Chieftain, you know, console has to win some stuff. But hopefully this video was a little bit helpful for you guys in knowing what tanks to grind and introducing some of the tanks themselves. If you didn't know what those tanks were, hopefully this video is a little bit more informative about what you knew. And if you guys want speculation videos on the statistics of each of those tanks, I can always go into those. Again, TanksGG is a PC website. For World of Tanks console, we have nothing of that, so I normally use this as a reference, and I can only use it as a reference because PC and console have different statistics, as do, you know, balancing around PC versus balancing around console tends to be quite different. And at this point you can see every tank that is currently released. So hopefully this video was helpful. If you did, please leave a like down below. If you didn't, dislike. Hopefully I gave you guys some at least a little bit of breathing room in what tanks you need to grind currently, and what tanks you should be wary of that are coming in the future. Again, the next update will introduce the Chinese tank destroyers. That is next week, Tuesday on February 13th, I believe is the planned release for that. And I don't know what the time span between their next update will be after that, or after our current update 4.3. So this should at least get you a head start in what tanks to grind before the next update hits. I would suggest start with the French tank destroyers, then down to the Conqueror for the grind after that, and after that the third grind would be your Tortoise. Roughly about 200,000 experience on any of those tanks will at least set you in the right direction for each of those. Again, apologies. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good night.